When the possibility of our Sara Duterte announcing a presidential bid for 2028 started circulating, one question immediately echoed across political circles and social media. Hindi ba maaga? Is it too early? In Philippine politics, timing is everything. Pero sa modern political landscape, maaga ba talaga? Or strategic lang? Let's be real. In today's world, campaigns don't start 1 year before elections. They start the moment a leader becomes nationally visible, since she assumed the vice presidency in Han's Philippines. Every move, every speech, every policy decision has already been viewed through a national lens. So if we think about it, the groundwork for 2028 isn't starting now. It has been building over time. Announcing early sends a strong psychological signal. It tells supporters, I am ready. It tells allies, align now. And it tells opponents, prepare. In politics, perception creates momentum. Kapag maaga mong dineclare ang intention mo, you control the narrative before others define it for you. Instead of reacting, you lead the conversation. But of course, may risks din. Early announcement means longer exposure. Every action from now until 2028 will be scrutinized as part of a presidential ambition. Small mistakes can be magnified. Political attacks may start earlier than usual. Pressure becomes constant. Hindi madaling dalhin ang ganitong klase ng long-term spotlight, yet this is also where strength is tested. A leader who can maintain consistency, discipline, and clarity over several years proves endurance. Presidential leadership is not about surviving one campaign season. It's about sustaining vision over time. If VP Sara can demonstrate stability and strategic patience in the coming years, the maaga criticism could turn into admiration for preparedness. Another important factor is political consolidation. Philippine politics thrives on alliances. By signaling early, she gives local leaders, party members, and power blocs time to decide where they stand. It reduces uncertainty. In a system where loyalty can shift quickly, clarity becomes an advantage. Early positioning can quietly discourage potential rivals within the same political sphere. There's also the question of legacy, being the daughter of former President Rodrigo Duterte. Expectations are naturally high. Some will frame her candidacy as continuity, others will demand distinction. The earlier she shapes her own presidential narrative, the more space she has to define her identity beyond comparisons. Hindi lang ito tungkol sa apelyido. It's about building her own chapter. Timing also connects to voter psychology. When people repeatedly see a leader in action over a long period, familiarity grows. Familiarity often builds trust. Instead of appearing suddenly during election season, a long pre-candidacy presence allows the public to evaluate leadership style gradually. That slow build can be powerful. But strategy must be careful. Too aggressive too early may create fatigue. The message cannot sound like campaigning every single day. Instead, it must focus on governance, performance, and results. Let actions speak louder than declarations. Kung maaga ang announcement, dapat mas maaga rin ang delivery ng solid accomplishments. Critics will say it distracts from current responsibilities. Supporters will say it shows vision. Both views can exist at the same time. The key difference lies in execution. If governance remains effective and stable, the early announcement will feel like preparation. If performance weakens, it will feel premature. In the bigger picture, hindi ba maaga reflects a traditional mindset about election cycles. But globally, politics is now continuous. Social media, digital engagement, and 24/7 news cycles mean leaders are always in campaign mode whether they admit it or not. The difference is whether they admit long-term ambition openly or operate quietly. So is it too early? Maybe in the old rules of politics. But under the new realities, maaga can mean strategic, maaga can mean organized, maaga can mean confident. What truly matters is not the calendar, it's sustainability. Can the message stay consistent until 2028? Can alliances remain intact? Can public trust grow instead of decline? In the end, a presidential run is not decided by the moment of announcement, but by the years that follow it. If those years are marked by steady leadership, smart coalition building, and clear vision, then history may look back and say it wasn't early at all. It was calculated. And in politics, calculated moves often shape the future more than perfectly timed ones. The question, hindi ba maaga, immediately frames the conversation around timing. In politics, timing is often perceived as everything. A move that comes too late can look reactive, while a move that comes too early can appear overly ambitious. However, in the case of a potential 2028 presidential bid by Sara Duterte, The idea of being too early may actually reflect a shift in how modern political strategy works rather than a genuine miscalculation. Traditionally, campaigns in the Philippines were more compressed. Serious public positioning would intensify closer to the election year, and formal declarations were often timed to maximize immediate momentum. But politics today is no longer confined to official campaign seasons. Social media, digital news cycles, and constant public engagement have created a permanent political arena. Leaders are always being evaluated, always being compared, and always being seen as potential future candidates. In that environment, early positioning is not unusual, it is strategic. Announcing or signaling a 2028 presidential intention years in advance allows a candidate to define the narrative before opponents do. In politics, whoever frames the story first often gains a psychological advantage. Instead of being described by critics as power hungry or opportunistic closer to election season, an early declaration can be framed as long term vision and preparation. It sends the message that the ambition is not impulsive, but planned, not reactionary, but deliberate. There is also a strategic benefit in alliance building. Philippine politics is deeply influenced by coalitions, regional power bases, and local political networks. These relationships take time to strengthen and solidify. By positioning early, a potential candidate gives governors, mayors, party leaders, and influential blocs enough time to align. Political loyalty often depends on clarity. When a strong national figure signals clear intention, it reduces uncertainty and encourages early commitments. In that sense, maaga becomes a tool for consolidation. Another important dimension is voter psychology. Familiarity builds comfort, and comfort often builds trust. If the public becomes accustomed to seeing a leader as a long-term presidential figure, the idea of that person becoming president eventually feels natural. The candidacy begins to appear inevitable rather than surprising. That sense of inevitability can be powerful in shaping public opinion. People tend to gravitate toward candidates who seem stable and consistently present, rather than those who suddenly emerge close to elections. However, early positioning must be handled carefully. There is a thin line between preparation and premature campaigning. If the messaging feels too aggressive too soon, it can trigger fatigue among voters. The public may feel overwhelmed by prolonged political noise. Therefore, the strategy must be subtle. Governance must remain the priority. Performance in office should speak louder than constant political messaging. If leadership results are strong, early positioning will appear justified. If performance weakens, critics will quickly argue that ambition distracted from responsibility. The phrase "hindi ba maaga" also reflects cultural expectations about humility and timing. In many political cultures, overt ambition is sometimes viewed skeptically. Leaders are expected to appear called to serve rather than eager to claim power. This makes tone extremely important. An early signal must be framed not as personal ambition, but as readiness to serve if the people call for it. The language of service resonates more positively than the language of conquest. From a risk perspective, early positioning increases exposure. Every policy decision, public statement, and political alignment becomes part of a larger narrative about presidential readiness. Opponents have more time to scrutinize and criticize. Media analysis becomes constant. This extended spotlight can be exhausting and dangerous if not managed with discipline. Yet, it also provides the opportunity to demonstrate resilience. Enduring years of scrutiny without major missteps can reinforce an image of steadiness and maturity. There is also a competitive dimension. In any election cycle, potential candidates assess their chances based on the strength of others in the field. When a dominant figure signals early intention, it may discourage rivals within the same political space. Some may choose not to run, believing the path is already occupied. This reduces fragmentation and strengthens internal unity. In this sense, early timing is not just about public messaging, it is also about strategic positioning within the political elite. Furthermore, long-term preparation allows for message refinement. Political narratives rarely succeed in their first draft. They evolve. An early start provides time to test themes, adjust priorities, and respond to public sentiment. If certain issues resonate strongly, economic growth, education reform, national security, they can be emphasized. If other themes fail to connect, they can be reworked. The luxury of time allows for calibration. Critics may argue that it is unfair to start the race too soon, but in reality, the race never truly stops. Political figures with national prominence are always seen as potential future leaders. The difference is whether they acknowledge it openly or operate behind the scenes. By signaling early, a leader demonstrates transparency about long-term intentions. Ultimately, the debate over whether it is too early misses the deeper point. Timing is only problematic if it is unsupported by preparation. If early positioning is backed by consistent governance, disciplined messaging, strong alliances, and strategic patience, then it transforms from maaga into handa, from early into ready. In modern politics, readiness often matters more than strict adherence to traditional timelines. The real test is sustainability. Can the vision remain consistent over several years? Can public trust grow instead of fade? Can alliances remain stable despite shifting political winds? If the answer to these questions is yes, then early timing becomes a strength rather than a weakness. In that case, history may judge the move not as premature, but as calculated foresight in a constantly evolving political landscape. The second keynote focuses on one of the most sensitive and defining elements of a potential 2028 presidential bid: continuity of legacy versus independent leadership. For Sara Duterte, this is not just a political question, but a structural reality. Being the daughter of former President Mayor Rodrigo Duterte places her in a unique and complex position within the political landscape of the Philippines. Her identity is automatically connected to a legacy that remains influential, admired by many, and criticized by others. Continuity offers undeniable advantages. A political legacy provides built-in name recall, emotional loyalty, and a pre-existing support base. In electoral politics, recognition alone can be a powerful asset. Voters who strongly supported the previous administration may see her candidacy as a natural continuation of policies and principles they already trust. Stability appeals to people who fear uncertainty. For this segment of the electorate, continuity signals consistency, strength, and reliability. However, continuity can also become a limitation if not carefully balanced. Every political era carries both achievements and controversies. When a candidate is strongly associated with a previous administration, she inherits both the praise and the criticism. Opponents will likely frame her not as an independent leader, but as an extension of the past. This framing can restrict her appeal among undecided voters or younger generations, who may desire a fresh direction rather than a return to previous narratives. That is where independent leadership becomes critical. To broaden national support, she must demonstrate that while she respects her roots, she is not confined by them. Independence does not mean rejection of legacy, it means evolution. It means showing that leadership capacity comes not only from family background, but from personal experience, decision-making, and administrative performance. Her tenure in public office already provides space for that distinction. As vice president, her policies, priorities, and management style contribute to shaping her own political brand. Each initiative she supports, each issue she addresses, gradually defines who she is beyond the Duterte surname. Identity in politics is not declared. It is constructed over time through visible actions. The challenge lies in messaging. If her 2028 bid is presented purely as a continuation, critics may argue that the country is being offered repetition rather than progress. If it is framed purely as transformation, some loyal supporters of the previous administration may feel alienated. The most effective strategy would likely combine both elements, preserving values that resonate with supporters while adapting approaches to address new realities. The Philippines faces evolving challenges: economic shifts, technological change, youth employment concerns, and shifting geopolitical dynamics. A successful presidential narrative must speak to these current and future issues, rather than remain anchored only in past themes. Independent leadership means articulating a forward-looking vision that feels relevant to 2028, not 2016 or 2022. Another dimension is generational change. Younger voters may not feel emotionally connected to past administrations in the same way older voters do. They are more influenced by present-day concerns such as digital economy opportunities, education access, and global competitiveness. To secure their support, a candidate must demonstrate understanding of contemporary priorities. Independent leadership allows her to communicate directly to this demographic without appearing defined solely by history. At the same time, completely distancing from legacy would be politically unrealistic. The Duterte name carries political weight across multiple regions. Political capital built over years cannot simply be ignored. The key is reframing legacy as foundation rather than blueprint. A foundation supports a new structure. It does not dictate every design choice. Opposition narratives will likely attempt to simplify the choice for voters by presenting her candidacy as either a continuation or a break. But political reality is rarely binary. Effective leadership often integrates continuity and innovation. The public may not demand total separation from the past. They may instead seek reassurance that experience will be paired with adaptation. There is also the international dimension. Global observers may watch closely to see whether her potential presidency would replicate past foreign policy approaches or adjust to new diplomatic conditions. Independent positioning could strengthen perceptions of flexibility and responsiveness on the world stage. Ultimately, the balance between legacy and independence will shape public perception of authenticity. Voters tend to respond positively to leaders who appear genuine rather than manufactured. If her independent positions emerge naturally through governance decisions and public engagement, they will feel credible. If differentiation appears forced purely for electoral strategy, it may be viewed skeptically. The core of this keynote is not about choosing between continuity and independence, but about harmonizing them. Continuity offers stability and a loyal base. Independence offers expansion and adaptability. Together, they can create a broader coalition capable of sustaining national leadership. In the end, the 2028 question will not only be whether she carries a powerful surname, but whether she convincingly demonstrates that she is prepared to lead on her own terms. The electorate will weigh experience against innovation, familiarity against renewal. If she successfully presents herself as both rooted and evolving, the debate over legacy may shift from limitation to strength. The true test will be whether voters see her not just as the daughter of a former president, but as a leader whose vision stands firmly on its own.